Neville before we go into questions.
Yeah, just good morning, and thanks everyone for being here. It's obviously a big day and a special day as we announce and name Phil Neville as the next head coach of the Portland Timbers. When we started this process, almost 10 weeks ago, and building out a profile for us, and what was most important to our club, it was apparent early on, and even more so the longer we went through that process, that Phil possessed so many of the attributes and qualities that we wanted in the next head coach. So I'm excited to be up here and to present Phil as the next head coach.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. First things first, I've got to say it's probably one of my proudest days in football to be named head coach of this great organisation. I was fortunate enough in the last couple of months to have many opportunities, many coaching opportunities to take, and from the minute I met Ned and Merritt and saw the city, saw the club, in my life I've always followed my gut, and my gut said straight away that I had to follow this dream of becoming the Portland Timbers head coach. And when I got the news that I was the head coach, I think it was the best news that I'd had. I've been here 15-20 years ago with Manchester United on a pre-season tour, so straight away I know all about the city. I've come here managing a team in Inter Miami. When I landed on Monday morning, straight away it just felt like the north of England. The weather, the city, the tightness of the place, the people have been fantastic since I've been here, and it feels like home. I think the passion that this city has for football is incredible. I think there's no city like it in the world that supports their male and female team like Portland do, and I think that's what makes this city so special. I was walking around the city yesterday. I think it's the first time I've been in an American city where people are wearing soccer shirts, people are wearing scarves, people are proud of their football club. So I can't wait to get started. And I think it's also important to address probably the statement that was put out last week by the Timbers Army. I think the big part of this city is the supporters, and I think the statement that they put out showed that this club cares about their people. In reference to the tweets that I made in 2011, I think I addressed these in 2019 when I was named the head coach of the England women's team. They're by no means a reflection of me as a person, as my character, and without a shadow of a doubt the way that I was brought up by my mother and father in terms of values that they instilled in me. The tweets that I put out was wrong in 2011, and they're wrong today. So I want to get to know the Timbers Army. I want to get to know everybody in the city. I want them to get to know me as a person, as a character, and I want to make sure that there's an incredible trust between us. And the main thing is that I think we have a common goal, and that's we want to be successful and we want to win.
You're welcome to questions.
Ryan Clark, the Oregonian. Phil, welcome to Portland.
Thank you.
Just, on that last subject that you touched on, you've said that you want to meet with the Timbers Army, have those conversations with them. Given what fans have been through with, the mistakes this club has made in the past with regard to issues of domestic violence, of, treating women the right way, I'm wondering, how will you approach that meeting with them in that conversation?
Well, I think it's definitely something that I want to do, and something I want to do straight away. I think the supporters of this football club, when it was announced yesterday that the hundreds and hundreds of messages that I received was from people telling me how fantastic not just the city is, but this set of supporters. I've been here as a coach in an opposition team, and the intensity, their passion, their commitment is, I think, unrivaled in any team in the MLS, any team in America. So I want to meet them. I want them to meet me. I want them to understand me. I want them to get to know me as a person, as a character. I was brought up the right way with strong values by my mum and dad, and I think I've lived my life in a certain way, and in a good way. And like I say, the reference to the tweets still to this day are totally wrong, and You know, I think if anyone's offended by them, I'd like to meet those people. I want them to get to know me, and I stand my character up against anyone or anything.
Ned, to what extent was what you anticipated the fans' reaction to Ned's past tweets and those comments taken into consideration with the hire? And what due diligence did you do to ensure that those tweets were not a reflection of his character?
Yeah, the tweets were, we were aware of the tweets early on in the process. And I think at that time, the decision was, do I rush to judge someone in their entirety based on that tweet? Or do we continue to try to go down a process, get to know that person a lot better through conversations, speak to a lot of different people throughout the game at a lot of different levels? I think that the most intriguing thing when we looked at Phil as well was just how diverse his coaching background was. He's been an assistant coach at some of the top levels. He's been in a World Cup, with the English women's national team. He's also coached in MLS, which was important for us as well. So I think the longer that we went through the process, the more that we got to know Phil, the more people that we spoke to, as I said, and I think he's probably answered multiple times as well, it's just not indicative of his character. And I'll stand by Phil's character. I think he's a person of high values as well. And I know from the work that's gone in for myself, along with a lot of other tremendous people in this club, never would I want to jeopardize the work that we've done as a club over the last year or so, in terms of putting real change in place and the people that I'm working with on a daily basis as well. So to what extent, did I think potentially, there would be people that are upset? Certainly, I think we knew we'd have to answer questions. Ultimately, make a decision, you have to own it and have conviction and belief in it. I do. I also think it's important to have some of those conversations and discussions. And I'm a true believer that it's probably most productive done in a constructive manner. I think we'll have plans to do that, and I know I won't shy away from it, and I know that Phil won't either.
Phil, over here, Adam Sussman, nice to meet you. You've worked in Spain, England. You mentioned the opportunities that arose before you took the Portland Timbers job. Maybe from a league as a whole, what attracted you to Major League Soccer, to working in it for a second time rather than somewhere else?
Well, I think if you look at the destinations around the world at this moment in time, I think this is the place to be. I obviously started watching MLS soccer years and years ago when David first came out to the LA Galaxy, and then there were other English players, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard came out, Robbie Keane came out, and I became a big fan of the MLS, and then the opportunity came to work out here. And I think what I've seen over the last two and a half years is that 100% of every club in the league now has state-of-the-art training facilities, incredible stadiums. The finances that they're putting into the infrastructures of every club now is really elite. And I think you look at the signing that was made down in Miami, then it's all going to get bigger and bigger and better. And I think with the World Cup coming up in 2026 for the men, and in 2027 hopefully for the women in this country, I think football is going to be at the forefront of everybody's mind. And when I left my last job, the first thing on my list was to stay in the MLS, because of the growth, because of the development, because of the excitement, because of the incredible football that gets played now, and it can only get better over the next 3 or 4 years. And I think it's a real exciting time for American soccer. The national team, I think, has got some incredible young players coming through, and I think can be a major threat at the next World Cup. Thank you.
Ed, hi.
Hi.
Given I was kind of wondering about the process, maybe how many candidates you looked at, and whether the controversies in the past and the culture in this club maybe gave you pause in selecting Phil, and was there ever an inclination on your part to go with maybe a safer quote unquote choice?
Yeah, I think, we spoke to, and I spoke to, say 16 to 20, because there was many others. We took the approach early on, and some of that was also the timing of the decision to move on, to give us the appropriate amount of time to have a lot of conversations including with some great head coaches that knew from the get-go that they weren't going to be a candidate here, but I found it beneficial to speak with them along with multiple general managers, and so on and so forth. I go back to that moment, early on when I was aware of those tweets. And as I said, I think the decision at that point was, do we just completely cycle out of that? Even though we could see that Phil's background and his experience, and his attributes fit a lot of our profile. It was clear early on in that process. But then I think it helped us go through maybe potentially a different level of due diligence and conversations that we had as well. I think that was helpful. I think it certainly gave me a better chance to get to know Phil, both on a personal level, both as a coach and a professional. And I think the longer that time went on, I felt more and more comfortable that Phil was the right choice for this club without question. I do point back to there's a lot of staff, technical staff on the business side. I work with these people daily. I know how much these people care about the club. Never would this decision be made if there wasn't full conviction that Phil is the right person, and he's the right person now.
Hi, Amy Norris. Phil, given the history of the club from a playoff standpoint, we've failed to make the playoffs 2 years in a row. Saw some really impressive growth under interim coach Joseph Miles. I'm curious what you initially think you can bring to the team to elevate the style of play and to achieve our goal, as Ned was saying in the last press conference, to be at the top of the league for a few years and eventually make MLS Cup.
Yeah, well, I think this club's history is about competing and winning and being at the top end of the table. And I think the last 2 years, obviously not qualifying for the playoffs has not been good enough for this football club. But I think what we've seen in the last 8 weeks in particular, since Miles took over, is we've got an exciting team, and we're not far away. But we've also got a lot of work to do, because each team in this off-season will improve, they'll strengthen and they'll get better, and we know that we have to get better. But I see the foundations of this football club really strong. The foundations in the team, we've got some really exciting young players. There's a couple of players that I wanted to sign in Miami that I'm really excited to get to work to. So I think we've got a real lot of work to do. But I think we're closer than what we think, and I think with the foundations that are already in place, and I think that's really important. That was important in my decision to accept this role, is that I was coming into a football club where the foundations are strong. There's a solidity to the whole football club. There's people in this football club been here a long time, and I think that kind of investment, that kind of longevity breeds success. I was involved at a football club in Manchester United where we had one manager for 26 years. We had the same staff for 26 years. That kind of them kind of values are really important to me. So when I look, and I met all the staff yesterday and they've all been here a long time, I see the foundations are really strong. Now, if you're saying what do I want to do here, 1000% I want to win. When I first met Ned and when I first met Merritt, the questions I wanted to hear from them, or the answers I wanted to hear from them, is that they wanted to win as well, which means that we're all on the same page, we're all heading in the same direction, and we know in football you've got to work really hard at that. And I just can't wait to get going in January, to meet the players, and to get this club up to the top of the league where I feel it belongs.
Thanks for the time, Phil. And to the field, and with that analysis,
Okay.
looking at the roster and looking at the team before taking over the job, how is that process for you? How many games do you watch? You watch highlights, someone analyze it for you, and you get together and think through it, and then coming to preseason and the idea of you building your own the system, the game model is something that you bring to the club. The club has a game model for you that you want to play around. The players dictate what you're going to do. What is that kind of analysis for you?
Yeah, well, I think when you work in the Eastern Conference, it's really difficult to watch Western Conference games. So I think since I left the last job, I became obsessed with watching all the Western Conference. As a coach, you want an encyclopedia of players and systems and coaches and stadiums that you don't get to see when you're in the Eastern Conference, apart from playing 7 teams from the opposite conference during the year. So I've watched every one of of Portland's game since I left my role. I've studied it. I've seen the system. I've seen home and away form. I've seen the way that players work. I know a lot about everybody in the building, because I think as a coach, you have to do your due diligence when you're choosing your next role. And like I say, I had a number of options. I wanted to choose a club that would give me the best chance of being successful, and I think that was the most important thing. And what I saw from the work that Miles and the staff had done in the 8 games, in the couple of months that they had the team, is that we've got the foundations of a really good team. We do need certain qualities, we do need certain characteristics to make us into a team that would be a competing team for a top 4, a home playoff, to win the MLS Conference and the MLS Cup. That's where we want to be. So that's the hard work that now in the off season, myself, Ned, and the coaching staff have to put the work in, and have to make the big decisions and the right decisions to make sure that when we come back in January, we have the right playing staff in the building for us to be competitive, to be successful. And I think in terms of the way that I want to play, I'm an attacking coach. I want us to attack. I want us to entertain. I want us to play good football. And I always think to myself, when the supporters come and see a team, you want to see an identity, and identity is really important to me as a coach. And I think when the season starts, I think the supporters will see a clear identity of where we want to take this team. And like I say, I think it's not ripping up what's gone in the past, because the foundations have been really strong. I think it's tweaks here and there, and adding another layer on top of what I believe will help us be successful.
Phil, you alluded to your time under Sir Alex Ferguson. I'm sure he's had a major influence on your career, but other than him, who are some of the coaches around the world's game that you've kind of taken influence from and that have made you the coach you are today?
Well, I think Sir Alex is probably the number one. I worked with David Moyes for 8 years, 9 years at Everton, and then a year at Manchester United, and he probably had an even bigger influence on me in terms of coaching. Sir Alex was more life, more about how you behave in life, how strong your values are, what's expected of you every day. Where David Moyes taught me probably the intricacies of coaching and the detail that's needed to coach. I study every coach in the world. I think you can take bits from every single one of them. From a very early age, Bielsa was someone that I really loved. I loved his intensity. I remember we played Atletico Bilbao. He was the Bilbao manager, and on the day of the game, they trained for 2 hours on the day of the game and then beat us at night. I think it was 4-2. And you think about sports science nowadays, they don't like to train 2 hours 3 days before a game, where he had his players out on the day of the game training for 2 hours. And from that moment onwards, I thought that's something special, So there's many coaches around the world that I've taken bits from, but ultimately it's, I'm my own person. I've got my own philosophy, I've got my own values, I've got my own character, and I want that to shine through.
Phil, just 2 questions for you. The first, obviously, the process, being able to speak to folks in this club. Who did you interview with in this process, and what were those conversations like? And secondly, filling out your staff. Obviously, there's a couple guys sitting in the back of this room who people have talked about as potential assistants. I'm wondering, where things stand there.
Well, they will be my assistants. I think I'll answer your second question first. Is that when I'm probably quite unique in the terms of I don't travel with an entourage of people. I've had experiences of being dropped into clubs where there's been entourages of people with a manager, and I didn't like it. I think it creates a little bit of a breakaway. I look at clubs and I look at staffs and think about the qualities that are in the building, and I think what I am really lucky at in this football club, and obviously for the last 5 weeks I've been part of probably the toughest process I've ever been through to get the job, is that there are some outstanding coaches. Miles I wanted to take into Miami 3 years ago, and probably the biggest mistake I ever made, not taking him, because somebody recommended me, somebody from a friend in football, a friend I knew at Clemson, and obviously Miles went to Clemson. I couldn't get him out of there because I think they wanted $1 million from him at the time or something. that was a joke. And Liam, I think we've played against each other, and Memo is someone that's got great experience in the club. I like people with club experiences, people that have been here a long time, people that have coached here, played here, know the fan base, know the experiences of the cities, that can help and guide me in aspects of things that I don't know. And I like employing people that will challenge me. I like employing people that probably in some aspects know more than me. So I think with the three guys that are sat at the back of the room, I think straight away, plus maybe one that I'm going to add to the staff, I think I'll have the best staff in the MLS without a shadow of a doubt in terms of experience and quality, and that's something that I'm really, really excited about. In terms of your first question, I think what the MLS have set up in terms of processes and protocols now is incredible. There's no sort of like jobs handed to you on a plate anymore. It's a case of you've got to go through strict protocols and processes, and the amount of calls and interviews and presentations that you have to do for jobs now means that when you finally get the job, you really have earned it, and the amount of time that's needed now to present and the background checks that go with it means that clubs now are in probably a better place to make the best decisions. And I think that's the right and only way to go about employing people. And in terms of the people that I spoke to, Ned and Merritt were the two main people that I spoke to. Later on in the process, once I'd got the job, I was introduced to Jack and other people around the club. But in terms of until I got the role, it was Ned and Merritt.
Phil, given your analysis of the team so far, what does this team need in the off season?
That's a great question.
What would be on your wish list, so to speak?
Don't get them too excited, please.
It's my moment now, isn't it? 3 DPs and 320. No, look, I think when you look at the team, when I've assessed the team, and obviously I've had conversations with the guys back there, is that I think in terms of technical ability and ability, I think we've got a really good team. I think the one thing this league, I think to win in this league, there's certain characteristics that you need in a winning team. Experience is one, characters, personalities, leadership. I think Ned spoke about leadership probably in the other 3 or 4 press conferences that I've seen Ned do. I think leadership is a big thing. And I think this is the toughest league in the world to win. I firmly believe that. Why? Because every single team has a chance of winning it, and it's not like that in other leagues around the world. There is a real equality to this league where the Colorado finished at the bottom this year could easily qualify and finish near the top next year. It's that kind of league. So I think there are certain qualities that most successful teams have in this league, and I'd say that the biggest one, I think you need your DPs to produce. I think you look at the best teams, their DPs win them games of football. So I think with the foundations that we've got and the trades and the acquisitions that we'll make means that that the DPs are the biggest ones for me. I think in my last job I went through a period where I didn't have a DP for a period of time in the whole team, and every single game that we tended to lose, it was a DP that scored against us, and that was in my first 3 months in the job. So very quickly I learned that you've got to have the best DPs, and we've got some outstanding DPs already at this football club, and we want to add on top of that.
Ned, you said you did your due diligence with this hire that this club did. The last 24 hours obviously there's been some difficult comments on social media from the fan base. What has it been like just for you to watch that?
Yeah, I thought it was unfortunate in some ways, but at the same time, I think you can't be quick to react, and sometimes you have to digest, what you see and hear. I know for me, a little over 8 years ago, the biggest intrigue in terms of coming to this club, when you think about the Portland Timbers, the first thing you think about are the fans and the supporters and the atmosphere that we have at this club. It's second to none. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And part of what makes them incredible is they're passionate. They're incredibly engaged, and they have a commitment to standards both on the field and off the field. And I think that helps drive the club as well. And so I think that there's difficult times, there's difficult moments. You know, I think sometimes maybe as a society we're too quick to rush at times to outrage. And like I said, I think it's really important that we have that time with the fans, with the people that want to be in front of Phil and myself, want to have a better understanding. I think it's important to do that. I think there's a right setting to do that, and I know Phil's eager to do that, so am I.
Phil, a couple more. Back to the game and the field. How much of what we saw at Inter Miami is Phil's style of play, model of games, and how much was dictated by the team that you found there, the circumstances? And attached with that one, you understand that you said it before. You want to be, you want to win, right? You want to be successful. You understand that wasn't a really like good look at your job. That probably didn't leave you with a good flavor.
Well, I think with being, you know, I loved my time at Inter Miami. I think everyone knows the relationship I have with the ownership there. So I think from the very first day, I think being totally honest, it was probably impossible to win because of the sanctions that we received. And I'm not speaking out of turn because that's public knowledge to everybody. But I think the way I feel today is that I'm a head coach of the Portland Timbers, managing a team for the first time on a level playing field with every other coach in the league, because I've never had that since I came to the MLS. You know, the sanctions were the biggest sanctions that's ever been given to any given team, and I always say, and I said it too, because it was a question that it brought up in the process, is that finishing sixth with Inter Miami in my second season was probably the greatest achievement I've had in my footballing career, both as a player and as a coach. It was. We had sanctions, we changed around 19 players, we had one DP who for half the season didn't want to be there and then wanted to be there and became an inspirational figure. So I'd say that when people look at the Inter Miami experience, it was one of the toughest but the best experiences of my managerial coaching career, because of the challenges that were thrown in front of me from day one. And I didn't know that before I went into the job, but I was so positive about the job and that I knew I could be a success. So I'm now on a level playing field with every other coach in the MLS, and now's the time to judge me, you know, because of the fact that we're all level.
Yeah, last one. You mentioned before, if I get it right, that your time in Spain and your experiences gave you enough Spanish to communicate with the Spanish players around in the team.
Yeah.
Are you willing to take one in Spanish?
Sorry?
One question. Are you willing to take one?
That's a big
question?
ask, but should we try?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, that's why I'm asking.
What about in my next press conference?
It's up to you.
The one thing I'd say about my Spanish is really good away from the cameras. And no, and I was at Valencia for 1 year, and me, my wife, my son, my daughter, we had lessons every single day, and we all became fluent in Spanish. We stayed another 2 years. I committed to the family that I would travel backwards and forwards to, because I honestly thought that would be the biggest skill that I could add to my coaching and to my career and to particularly my children's career and their lives. So I'm really confident speaker in Spanish away from the cameras, and when the cameras are off, I'll come and say hola to you, and communicating is no problem to me in terms of the players. We've got a strong Latino influence within the whole club, and communicating won't be a problem. It's probably one of the best things I've ever done. You know, I wasn't great at school because football was my main love and my only probably sort of like focus, but learning Spanish for 2.5 years in Valencia has opened up many doors for me, and has allowed me to do the thing that's really important in any leadership position, and that's communicate to people with different skill sets, different languages.
Phil, with the squad kind of scattered really all over the globe right now, how does communication work with them as a group and individually? Are you reaching out to them? Is there specific players that you've gone to first? Have you been in contact with any Timbers players thus far?
No, I got a text from Zach McGraw on Sunday asking me if I was at the Thorns game, and I was 30,000 feet up in the air on a Delta flight from Miami. So I'm hoping to meet the majority of players either today, tomorrow or Thursday that are in market, that are in Portland. If not, we will be communicating with them, every single one of them, because I think every single one of them are important. That, you know, from number 1 on the roster to number 31 on the roster, plus the MLS 2 players, I think are important. I want to touch base with absolutely everybody. I want to start connecting with them, getting to know them, getting to understand them as people first, and that process starts ASAP.
Ned, just sort of following up on the previous press conference that you had heading into this offseason, any further updates sort of on the status of, you know, players that have options like Sebastian Blanco or others maybe that are potentially departing the club?
No updates there, but I do think we're in position over the next week or two where it will be very clear in terms of those options, you know, not just with Sebastian Blanco, but on some other players as well. We've had a chance in just a short amount of time as well of Phil being here and in conversations in previous weeks as well in terms of how we want to reshape that roster, you know, where some of the changes need to come and where some space can be added up as well. So I think over the next week or two, we'll be in a position probably to make it pretty clear in terms of who will be back next season and who won't.
Any last questions in the room?
Thank you. Paulina with KPTV. I'll make it simple. You've spoken about the goals that you want for this team, which is to ultimately win. But now in the off season, what's your first order of business specifically?
Well, I think the first thing is I want to meet everybody in the club. I want to connect with everybody in the club. That's really important. I want to build relationships with everybody. I want them to get to know me and me to get to know them. And then really I think when you talk about winning and the key ingredients to winning, I always think is recruitment. Recruitment is the biggest thing that we have to do in this off season to make sure that when the pre-season starts in January, then we're ready to hit the ground running. This team hasn't really started seasons that well over the last couple of seasons, so that's a big main focus. And I think if you get your recruitment done really early and really well, and you bring in the right people to get on the bus, then you can start the season really, really, really good. And you know, but I think we have a saying in England about Rome wasn't built in a day. I think there's many steps now over the next 100 days. The first 100 days in your new job are the most crucial, and I think getting to know people, getting to connect with people, getting to understand people, and I think that's why I don't like bringing in my own entourage, because we've got a group of people that know the fabric of this club, that know the ins and outs of every single player, they know the strengths and weaknesses of everything that goes on, so we're almost ahead of the game in that respect, or I'm ahead of the game in that respect, because I can lean so heavily on the guys that are in this building straight away. And then it's all about getting the right players on the bus, heading in the right direction, setting a culture that's really important for us to be successful. And I think it would have been really wrong of me to be up here today and say we just want to compete, we just want to finish in, you know, the top 4, get in the playoffs even, and because that wouldn't be setting the bar where I want the bar to be set. I've come to this football club to win. Come to this football club to be playing on December the 9th in the MLS Cup, because I feel as that's where this football club wants to be and needs to be, and particularly that's where these supporters want to be. I never forget the MLS final a few years ago when NYC came here, and I remember watching at home thinking that is one of the best atmospheres that I've seen in an MLS game. Now that's what I want, that's what I dream of, that's my aspiration, that's my vision, that's why I accepted this role. Because that's where I want to take this club, and I'm not going to do that on my own. We're going to need everybody together, fighting in the same direction, creating a culture and spirit that this city has. Never mind this football club. You look at the game on Sunday, and sorry for rambling on, but the game on Sunday the Thorns played was breathtaking. The turnout from the supporters was breathtaking. It just doesn't happen in any other city. I played for the biggest club in the world, and they get 3,000 people watching their women's game, and they've got a reach of millions and millions and billions of people. This city is something really special, and I think we need to bring something special to the city in terms of what they see on the pitch. And the season can't start quick enough. That was a long answer, I know, but we got there.
All right, we'll move to questions online.
Okay, we'll start off with Tom Boger of The Athletic. guys. Ned and Phil, thanks for taking the time. I have a question for each of you. I know that you've kind of touched kind of broad strokes on both of these, but, Phil, in doing your analysis of the squad, a marquee player like Evander sticks out. So I wanted to see if you had, I guess, any early plans on how to maximize Evander in his second season. And Ned, just, I know you've touched on it a little bit in general, but what are kind of the key points that you're looking to add to the group this offseason? Thanks, guys.
Well, I mean, Santi Moreno and Evander was the first player that I ever spoke to when I was manager of Inter Miami. I wanted to sign him as a deep league player in Inter Miami. It didn't happen. Santi Moreno was a player that I wanted to sign in Inter Miami, and it didn't happen. So I think what we've seen, what I've seen, particularly over the last 2 months since Miles has been in charge, I think Evander is a special player. I think he's got the ability, the qualities. When you look at number 10s in this league, number 10 is a special position in this league, and you look at Acosta, Mukhtar, Carlos Gil, they for me are probably the best number 10s in the league, and I think Evander this season can get up to that level, and that level in terms of his play has probably been there, but you're talking about goals, assists, winning games, winning competitions, winning trophies for this football club, and I've got real high expectations for Evander. I know his qualities. I've seen him an awful lot. I've scouted him an awful lot prior to him coming to the MLS, and I think next season's, particularly speaking to the guys yesterday, how excited they are about how he comes back for the pre-season, and how incredibly highly motivated he is to become one of those MVPs in the league.
Hey, Tom. I'll answer your question now. I think for us, a big focus going into this offseason would start out with the potential, looking at how to add an additional DP attacking player. And the question around that would be, is that best used at center forward? Is that best used in a wide position? But trying to find another player that can be goal dangerous and help unlock the game for us. It will be a main priority for us. And then I think as well, just in terms of how do we potentially strengthen the back line. That could come through starting level quality, but also potential depth added in some different positions. And I think as much as we'll focus on, the type of player, the level of talent, all those things, it's really, really important, as Phil alluded to earlier, just in terms of the characteristics, the personality of the player. It's really important that we get a few players in that bring some of the leadership qualities, some of the experience that hardens players in a way in this league, that can be leaned on, and the rest of the group, can also rally around. So we've also got, in my opinion, we've got a number of players that have been here for years and have proven that they're good enough in MLS and they're capable of helping us win games. But we may also have some difficult decisions in terms of having to move on from a player or two in order to bring in that different type of player that we might be looking for.
All right, next we'll go to Sam Spiller of Stumptown Footy.
Thanks, guys. Coach, welcome to Portland. First question for you. You've referenced the past tweets. You said that they were wrong then, they were wrong now. I'm curious to hear maybe what you've learned since then, since they were wrong, and kind of from then till now, kind of what you've learned and kind of what you've done to kind of help educate yourself kind of around, from those tweets until now. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I think I was manager of the England women's national team for three and a bit years. The most incredible experience that I've had in football, really, in terms of learning about the obstacles, the challenges that females have in their lives, not just in sport. I was probably a little bit ignorant towards that, but until I worked in the women's team, I won their trust. I developed as a person. I developed as a coach more than I've ever done by coaching and being around those incredible athletes. And I think if anybody sort of like, you want to speak to anyone in terms of a character reference, please speak to those people that I work with within the Lioness game, because that experience changed my life, and it changed my life in terms of not just my coaching experience, because coaching is coaching, but in terms of it developed me more as a person, my character, my understanding, and it was so good. And I always say that was probably the best learning life experience I've ever had, spending 3 years on the most incredible journey, going to World Cups and tournaments with a group of female athletes that will always have the most special and biggest place in my heart. And I think I said in an interview yesterday, and I hope people don't just think it's fluff because I'm here, is that I will be watching all the Thorns games. I'm obsessed with women's football, and that's not here. I'm not saying that because I'm here in Portland and because of the things that have been happening. That is just who I am and what I do. So I think actions speak louder than words now. I've lived and I've been brought up in the right way, and without a shadow of a doubt, when I see those tweets that I put out, it doesn't it's not a reflection, but it also is not something that's me, and it doesn't make me happy. So
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate that. And one more follow-up. Talking about your time, with the English women's national team, with Inter Miami, what are some things that maybe you've learned from those experiences that you're hoping to bring to Portland? And maybe with those times, specifically with Miami, what are some things that maybe looking back you would like to maybe redo or maybe do a little bit differently at this time? Thank you.
Well, I think when you leave a job like I did in Inter Miami, that you take a period of reflection. You go through every kind of emotion. There's the anger, there's the frustration, there's the sadness, there's the understanding, and then you go through a big reflection. And I'm a person that loves to sort of like reflect on how I can be better as a coach. And there was things that I could have done better into Miami. I could have probably demanded a little bit more. I could have asked for probably a little bit more. In terms of sort of like the two previous jobs, the Lioness job, we lost in the semi-final of the World Cup to the US, and I saw Becky Sauerbrunn a few weeks ago, I think, and the smile on her face was painful because of that game. We talked about that game, and that game itself will stay with me for a long time. I thought we were so close to winning a World Cup. We came up against I think the greatest probably US women's team that's probably ever been, and there's probably people in this room that'll challenge me on that, but I think that team was at its peak at that time, with players in every position that were world class, probably the best in their positions in the world. And so that was a big disappointment. But in terms of sort of like the experiences as a coach, and the guys will tell you at the back, every day is a learning experience. Every job that you go through is a learning experience, and every job that you go through is slightly different. And you can't just copy and paste each job. You take learnings from one job to another in the different experiences that you have. And that's what I've done through the real diverse coaching jobs that I've had in my career. I didn't want to just do the norm. I wanted different challenges. And when I left the last job, I never forget my wife looking at me and she's saying, we're not just going to move up the road here, you're going to do something a little bit different. And I did. I moved to the furthest point of America away from where we lived, and but that's what I enjoy. I enjoy a challenge, and I see this as one of probably the biggest challenges that I've ever had. And I think when you're in a space where your belly's got those little butterfly feelings, and you're feeling a little bit nervous, and you're not sure, I think that's a real good place to be. That means that you're out your comfort zone. And I think that's the place where I feel as if I'm at my best.
Last question from Tiago at MLS Brazil territory.
Good morning. Welcome to the Portland Timbers, Coach Neville. I know you've already talked a little about him, but I have to ask. I believe you have already analyzed the squad, but I want to know what your vision is for the Brazilian midfield Evander and what his role will be in this team. Do you think he can compete for the MVP next season?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we touched on that. I think we touched on that before in terms of my feelings, and not just my feelings, the feelings of everybody in this football club, how important that Evander is to this organisation. I think when you move countries, there's always an adaptation period. But what I saw in the games that I analysed towards the end of the season, that Evander is a match winner for this football club, whether that's in terms of assists or goals. and I still think there's another 15-20% to come from him, and I think that is the exciting bit. He's definitely not maxed out. I think what we saw last season was only just scratching the surface of where we can get the most out of Evander. And speaking to Miles and Liam yesterday, I think they're equally as excited about his growth and what he needs to do now in the off season to come back to compete. And when I say compete, it is competing against the Acostas, the Mukhtars, the Carlos Gills, the Carlos Velas. That's where we want Evander to be, you know, in that group of players. You know, and the influence that they have on their organisations is massive. And when they play well for their organisations compete and win trophies. And that's where we're going to take Evander.
Okay, we're going to wrap it there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.